Hi,
Hi, Mary.
Michelle.
Oh, the sound is good. Everything is good.
Yay.
So, good afternoon, everyone. It's Michelle Silverman Bedell from Silverson's Realty and Maria Esposito from Citizens Bank. And
Yes.
today we are going to be speaking about real estate and possibly the changing landscape and the changing market. So, Maria, I'm sure you have a lot to say about the mortgages, and I may be wrong, but I think it inched up a bit yesterday, or I'm not sure, but we want to
Yeah.
speak about that, and it depends whom you listen to. And I'll definitely chime in about the real estate market, and it's definitely changing. I will say that the market, at least, it's very local. So I'll speak about Westchester, which really probably reflects the general area. Um, that the inventory is definitely improving and increasing, and where it's still a seller's market, I think, in most cases, especially in the mid range. Let's say between uh, 800 and a million two. I think it's still a seller's market, and even maybe a little higher. We have a lot of buyers in the market, despite the interest rate. Um, I think that it's very important, even though I don't think it's a buyer's market yet. I think that's very important to price your home correctly to get the most interest in your home, especially when you first put it on the market. And I think what you have to do when you price a home correctly is you really have to look at recent sales. I would not go back a year, although an appraiser does. I would go back, let's say 90 days, and really look at the active homes that are that would be competing with the house you're going to list on the market. You really want to make sure the condition is good. If anything has to be done to the home, you really want to spruce it up. You want to really give it its best possible appearance, and to get the most amount of viewings and showings and appointments. You have to consider the demand in the market. Not every area has the same demand in terms of activity, and you really have to really understand that particular niche and be very local in your search, right? So
Right.
I think the pricing, though, in a changing market is really critical to getting the best price and the best outcome. If you price it too high, because the homeowner could think, well, let's test the market, let's see how it goes. You really will not get the impact that you would if you
Right.
really price it to
If
sell.
it's priced right.
So
Right.
if it's
I
priced to
was going to
sell,
say that I think that, like you and I have been in our industries for, too many years to count.
right,
Right. And usually, and I would say that, like, yeah, we're always either like in a seller's market or a buyer's
right,
market. But I would say that where we're at right now is about as close as one can get to kind of being like
in the
in an
middle.
equal market.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
right.
And I will say that, like we are currently in the spring market, which is typically the busier time of year for us, and we are busier. I could tell you, just as a bank, applications are much higher this time this year than they were last year. And so definitely, that's a sign of uptick. And interest rates, while there has been has been some volatility with the headlines and the war and all of that and oil prices, and they are directly impacting interest rates. Um, they are still lower than where they were this time last year. And while there is some volatility, it's not like they are spiking up, and then dropping back down.
Right,
They're sort of staying in
level,
a range. And, obviously the whole goal is to try to, when you do lock the rate, to try to lock in at the lower end of that
right,
range. Because there are, like yesterday, we had a great day in the market. And, but the day before was like a horrible day in the market. So, um, the bank that I work for, Citizens Bank, is not a bank that tends to, um, you know, uh, put out rates and reprice throughout the day, like, as the day is fluctuating. There are a lot of lenders that do that. So we tend to try to like be a little more even keeled. But even with that, yeah, there definitely has been more volatility in the last couple of months than there was, from, let's call it, from like last summer to February. Rates were like pretty steady to slightly declining. We
Right.
did see them come up some, but we also saw them come down some in the last few weeks as well, right? So I would say that it's and you if you can, and depending on the the loan size and your credit and a host of other factors, if you have relationships with a lender, or you're able to
Right.
bring a relationship to that
Right.
bank, you're still able to get rates that are in the fives, certainly in the low sixes. And if you can secure a mortgage interest rate, in that range, that really is what the typical mortgage interest rate is, right? Any higher than that, then you definitely are paying higher, and any lower than that, I mean, those were anomaly times. I don't know that
Right.
we'll see those again. And you can't bank on that if you're a
Right.
buyer out there, right?
Yeah, obviously, you can't wait forever. You'll never buy a
No,
home. Right? I do
no,
know
yeah.
people like that. They're waiting and they're renting.
They're waiting. And in the meantime, like, prices of homes aren't coming down, not in our area.
No,
So,
surely not. And I'm not seeing it. Look, I am seeing because we really I could focus on what I could see what how long homes have been on the market, right? And I am seeing some products, some homes on the market 30 days, 40 days. I am seeing that. I can't say a
right,
lot, especially in the mid-range, but I am seeing that. But
right,
people also, buyers are very aware of days on the market, those factors. They're very savvy. They can easily track a property. And even like in our market, even if a home has been on the market 3 weeks, they take it off the market for whatever reason, they put it back out. You can easily track the
the
history of a
history, right.
property. So I think that that's important for a seller to know also, that the
Yeah,
history cannot be erased.
yeah,
And often people say, well, take it off Zillow, take it off. You
right,
can't, right? It
right.
becomes an off market, but you
Yeah,
can't erase the history of the property. And I
right.
think I will say though that the market, I'm a lot busier. We are a lot, and from whenever every broker, every agent's telling me the same thing, that our listings are getting a lot more showings. We are just across the board, whether it's
Yeah,
co-op, condo, single family, land, new construction. I'm seeing a lot more activity in general in the market
agreed.
and a lot more buyer demand
Yeah,
about and also just you see a lot more activity and frenzy. Things are
yeah,
moving. You have to be really quick.
yeah,
So I think that that's much better than it was. I could tell you a year ago we were
yeah,
busy, but not like it is now. So I
yeah.
think that buyers are getting used to the interest rate.
I
Now,
mean,
while
they've been this way for like three
it's,
years now,
right,
right?
exactly. So they
And,
should get used to it.
they're on the lower end of, they're certainly not at the highest. But yeah, I would say, the best advice that we can probably give to buyers, right, is make sure that you have that you've have a real pre-approval, that you have real financing lined up, that
Right,
that you can go shopping and make offers with confidence, that there's not going to be, any issues there. I will say, like, one of the things that um, I'm seeing more of it recently is usually I'm working with the buyer's agent and the
right, right.
buyers, right? But I'm having, more and more say like, oh, do you mind if the listing agent calls you? They want to
Right,
ask you
for
some
sure.
questions about
Right.
the pre-approval. And I've had more of those, conversations than I
Well,
probably have had in the last
yeah.
5 years.
Really, well, we do it automatically, right? We are
Yeah.
always contacting the other side to confirm that everything's been checked out, the
Yeah.
assets.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing that we are also telling our buyers is if you work with the lender, and I'm sure you do it, that you can really take it to the next step. and have it underwritten, have your pre-approval, go to that next step. So the lender really underwrites, almost subject to an appraisal or contract,
Yeah.
your pre-approval. I think that's very important. It allows you to almost compete with a cash buyer.
Yeah.
So that to me is very important. But I
Yep,
can't
for sure.
say, right? So I really think when you look at real estate, and especially in this market, I will say that in light of what we did speak about, even though Zillow may project in 2020, in this year, 2026, rate, the prices to go up maybe 1.5%. I can say in Westchester so far, from last year's quarter to the first quarter of 2026, the prices are up 11%. So
Wow.
it really shows according to our statistics. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few quarters.
Right.
And how the market, how it works out for the balance of the year. But affordability is still an issue, but I think that buyers who are in the market are maybe looking in more than one area, so it becomes more affordable for them, and it
Yep.
opens up their search. So having said that, I wish everybody a good weekend.
Yeah. First
And
day of May.
right, it's May Day.
It's May. So,
I remember when I was in school, when I was a kid many moons ago, we had some function always on May 1st.
on May 1st,
It
yeah.
was always like some sort of celebration.
It's my
Anyway,
it's my birthday month, so I kind of
me
celebrate.
too.
I
Me
cel
too.
Oh, well,
When
look,
is yours?
the 11th.
Mine too. Oh my God.
How did we not know that?
Right? Right. That's so funny, but we have to celebrate in person. We'll meet in the city.
All right, absolutely. All right, sounds
Have a
great.
good one. Enjoy
You
your
too.
weekend. Have a
Bye-bye.
happy birthday. Bye bye.
Bye.